Let us consider the following. As the title of the video suggests, if you use your senses and imagination in a certain way, you can achieve whatsoever you want. Now, if this is true, why then is it so difficult for the average person out there to even remotely grow towards the realization of anything they would really want? Well, there's an answer to that problem that most of us are facing. I mean, if you've been studying consciousness for a while now, perhaps you've got some grip on it, but if you've just started out getting into this sort of material, it might still be a tricky thing for you to grasp. It was something that at the very first time I started studying consciousness and metaphysics, it was something that was holding me back. It was very confusing to me at times. In fact, I would go as far as to say that way back in 2007, a part of me felt like there was so much power in this idea that our minds could create our realities, but at the same time, a lot of the claims, they just seemed almost too good to be true. So because of that, I kept studying, but it wasn't easy to just instantly accept it. So today I wanted to share with you a couple of points that can hopefully make it easier for you to at least gain an understanding of why this is true. Why the video title is, for example, true, even though it might sound too good to be true. Now, in order to do that, I wanted to take you to a few paragraphs from somebody by the name of Wallace Wattles, who wrote a book way back in the early 1900s. So this manuscript is over 100 years old. But he said the following. In chapter 10, Further Use of the Will, he said, "You cannot retain a true and clear vision of wealth if you are constantly turning your attention to opposing pictures, whether they be external or imaginary." Now that right there is so powerful, yet it's so easy to just go over that, even to listen to this and just let it fly out of your mind instantly. So let me repeat it. You cannot retain a true and clear vision of wealth, or you could say of success, or of whatever else it is that you want, if you are constantly turning your attention to opposing pictures, whether they be external or imaginary. Now, what does he mean with opposing pictures? Because we're not talking about photographs necessarily. It could be the case, but we're not necessarily talking about looking at opposing pictures. What he's saying here essentially is the importance of you learning to use your consciousness to keep it aimed towards what you want. That's how you want to use your willpower, is to keep your mind focused on where you want to go with your life. Now, in this case, he says, but we cannot do that if we are turning it to opposing pictures, whether they be external or imaginary. So, if you're talking about something external to ourselves, this is what we're used to. Our senses are always showing us stuff that is external to ourselves. So here, we simply mean that you don't want to spend time looking at videos that tell you can't do something, or that the world is going downhill, bringing your hopes to shipwreck, for example. So that's something that I do. I don't really watch the news. I'm aware of certain stuff that's going on out there in the world. I mean, sometimes when I visit certain websites, you see news pop up or whatever. There's news articles everywhere. A lot of times it's very negative. And even though in a way we could say it's reasonable to at least be aware of what's going on in the world, we also should be aware that it shouldn't cause us to become worried or fearful or doubtful about our own potential and dreams that we still have. And that's what we're talking about. That you don't want to look at stuff external of yourself that is in contradiction to what you want. Now the other part is imaginary. Now this one is even more interesting and more hard to grasp at times, because imaginary, again, is, as it says, it takes place inside your own consciousness. So for example, a jealous person, a worried person, a lot of times is entertaining ideas and visions and concepts in their minds that might be totally untrue. There's people out there in a relationship who are constantly jealous of their partner if they even remotely get attention from someone else. Like a man might be jealous of his woman if she gets positive attention from another man. And vice versa, it's the same. A woman might become jealous if she sees that her man is getting attention from other women. It's like, okay, so why are they getting jealous? Well, they're creating an idea in their minds through their imagination that is in contradiction to what they want. They're causing worries, crazy scenarios to unfold. Now again, Wallace warned here that we don't want to do this. Because of those activities, we cannot retain a true and clear vision of what we want. That's what it's all about. So Are you getting the point here? You want to start looking at your days and realize and grasp how you're spending it. Are you focusing on stuff when it's external to yourself that is of a positive nature, that is uplifting to you, that is helping you get closer to where you want to go in life? Or are you looking at contradicting things that wouldn't even be in harmony with your deepest heart's desires, but you're just doing it out of habit or because for whatever else that your reason might be at the time? Now, a little further on in another paragraph, he also said, there may be a good many things in existing conditions which are disagreeable, but what is the use of studying them when they are certainly passing away, and when the study of them only tends to check their passing and keep them with us? Now here he's essentially saying that by giving attention to something, you're keeping it alive. Maybe not in your physical world, but at least in your consciousness. Now if you're keeping things that are contradicting to your deepest desires alive within your consciousness, you can see that you're unable to grow towards the direction of what you want. Or at least you'll be delaying it. You're causing all sorts of delays to happen because of doubts, worries and fears that you're developing based on contradicting ideas. Again, he's reminding you to keep your mind clearly, like a laser focused towards what you want. Now, what do you really want? Because if you're using your senses and imagination in a certain way, you can achieve whatsoever you want. So how are we going to do that? How are we going to use our senses to our benefit? Well, the imagination is pretty easy to grasp how to use that to your benefit. You simply learn to imagine according to what you want. You want to imagine the desires fulfilled. You want to see the results that you're after. Now, how are you going to use your senses though in order to make that happen? Well, here's a little game you could play, something that I've been doing myself. You could, if you're on a computer, even if you're not, but I suggest you are, because it's easier to make a picture. So what we're going to do is go on the computer, use Photoshop, perhaps even Paint if you really want to. But you want to create a picture that represents, that portrays aspects of the dream that you would want to have realized for you in your world. So for me, for example, I remember doing this with an older YouTube channel I had a few years ago that I just started in 2015. I would create like a picture for myself that would show me the sort of amount of subscribers that I wanted to reach with that channel. Now, I had that picture constantly on my desktop as a wallpaper, so every time I would be on my computer I could see it, the number, the goal that I was after. I hadn't yet achieved it, but I knew this is where I wanted to go, so I stayed focused on there. It kept me motivated to at least keep thinking of new and better ways to get there. Now that is me using my senses to my advantage. Have you been doing something like this? Because you could do it yourself. In that moment, if you create a picture of what you want, even if it's a better home, a good relationship, you want to collect a picture or maybe multiple pictures. They also call this a vision board, if you didn't know. But by having those pictures, you reminding your own consciousness of where you want to go. That is the point you want to understand. You don't want to necessarily obsess over that picture of a new home or over perhaps pictures of wonderful relationships, because that's kind of weird to obsess over those people in the picture, right? For example, you could create a list, as I've mentioned in one of my previous videos, of the sort of character traits that you would admire in a future partner. You could have that on your desktop as a wallpaper, all those traits. So it keeps your mind focused. But here's what you want to understand. You want to be emotionally involved in it. So you don't want to have the picture and just look at it and think, oh, that's a nice picture. You want to actually fall in love with your own dream, as we always say. And by using this method, you're also using your senses to at least help you see where you want to go. If it's too difficult for you at first to use just your imagination alone. For most people it is too difficult, they need to train this. With me it's just a combination of both. I just have a picture on my wallpaper currently, even for this inspirational channel. And one day I might actually share with you what I actually had on the picture. Should be interesting. But I'm giving it a few years for me to work on this before I start sharing that. Just so I can, give it a chance to grow. But that's what I'm doing currently, and I always have that on my background, on my wallpaper. Currently I'm looking at it. I have a goal completely visually visible to me through my senses here. So it reminds me every day, this is where I want to go currently with my inspirational channel. So it keeps me focused. Doesn't mean that I am always acting on the dream though. This is another thing you want to understand. You mostly want to keep your dream active within your consciousness and within your emotions. You don't want to obsess too much over physical actions alone. So in your case, you want to get used to the fact that you have to feel and imagine your dream as if it's already achieved, because that is what will inspire and compel the right actions to occur in your world. That is what keeps you motivated to keep it going. But so many people got it backwards. They're so focused on the physical alone that they're not doing the inner work that is necessary in order to keep themselves in harmony with their greatest heart's desires. And that's what we're getting at here. If you're used to your senses and imagination in a certain way, you're keeping yourself in harmony with your dream, and then you can achieve whatever that dream dictates, whatever you decided upon. This is my dream. You get what I'm saying here? If you consider this deeply, well, you'll be able to grow towards what you want. It happens over a certain period of time. Never forget this. Of course, some dreams happen overnight, perhaps. But in most cases, it happens over a certain amount of time. Maybe a few weeks, months, perhaps years, depending on how big the dream might be, right? I mean, it's all kind of relative. Nothing is really good or bad, as was said in the past. Nothing is big or small, except our own thinking makes it so. Now I want to remind you that I will create a video presentation about this concept with a little more details and explanations on the 21st of November. So if you want to learn more about this concept, you'll be able to find a video by then on this channel to learn even more about this. Anyways, with that being said, dear viewer, never forget that we are the dreamers.